Remember this song? Our special guest today on Round the Horn is Charlie Ingui from the Soul Survivors. Hello, Charlie. How are you?
Lee, I'm good. How you doing?
We're doing okay, as good as we can expect with this pandemic, and it's too bad that we can't do this in person. It's truly an honor to have you with us today.
Great to be here.
Around the Horn. Well, let's first talk about your musical background and how you first started in music.
Well, it goes back a long way, Lee. Goes back to elementary school, fourth grade. Those were times when the songs on the radio and the artists on the radio when I was growing up were, like Tony Bennett, Johnny Ray, Frank Sinatra, people like that. And I just loved to sing. So I'd listen to them on the radio and just kind of like sing along with them. And I found out I could carry a tune, which was pretty good.
Right, right.
So I guess I was in the fourth grade. So that would make me, I guess, around eight years old. And we had at school, talent day and show and tell day and all. So I decided that I was going to get up in front of the room and sing because I wasn't really shy. So I got up and sang, and I got a great reaction from the girls. So I kept doing it, and that's what kept me interested in hey, let's try doing this, man. So from then, I would listen to. I grew up in Lower Manhattan, downtown Manhattan, and being in New York, we were lucky because we had great radio stations, great disc jockeys. We had Alan Freed, and we had Dr. Jive and Jocko, and Hal Jackson, and all these people. So I was very much into listening to radio and listening to what was all new to me. They called it rock and roll. It was all rock and roll, but now it seems that they call it doo-wop. Then it was just, they called it rock and roll, and it was street corner harmony, whatever. But I really got into that, and every neighborhood had a group, and hopefully there are more. The rest of the guys just came along because they thought they could sing. But anyway, we would
get a record deal out of that.
What's that?
Did you get a record deal?
Well, years later we did. We got a record deal years later when we started making the rounds. Every Saturday we would go to the Brill Building or one of the other buildings on Broadway where we knew all the record companies were. And we'd take the elevator up to the top floor. We'd start at the top floor, start knocking on doors and asking if we could audition.
Sure.
And so finally we did hook up with a small company. Made a few records, nothing that went very far, but you know how it is. You got a record in your hand with your name on it, and it feels good. Good. So we got that.
How did the Soul Survivors come about?
Soul Survivors kind of morphed out of one of the groups that we had put together. Well, actually, I joined this group from Ozone Park, Queens, called The Dedications. I joined that group, and they already had a record out, and so we would do hops and high school proms and all these teenage venues, and because they had a good nice following out there in Queens, so that grew and grew, and then we started doing some clubs around Brooklyn and all. So finally, one night we decided, rather than go all through this extra work and teaching house bands the songs, we decided to add our own backup musicians. So we we got together with not a bass player, a drummer, guitar player, and a organ player, and that's where the Soul Survivors started. And then we started playing around in different clubs in New York. Went down to Atlantic City, and that's where we met a bunch of kids from Philly, and that's how we actually wound up in Philly, because they started coming to see us down in Atlantic City and invited us to come and play where they hung out in Philly. So we did, and drew great crowds there and became very popular there. So, and that was just before we were introduced to Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff.
Okay.
And luckily they had a great song for us. It was called Expressway to Your Heart.
Right. Sure. Yeah, I've
That's
like
what
I
that
said
happened.
before we went on the air, as a DJ and in radio and in clubs. I think I've probably played that song 500 times over my lifespan,
I've
and
sung it about
still do,
5,000
actually.
times.
We have a show called Radio Jersey, and we have played Express
Oh, yeah.
Your Heart many times because it's such a great song. That's for sure.
Thank you. And I hear it all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I could walk into CVS and sometimes hear it play,
sure. So let's talk baseball now. You grew up in Lower Manhattan, right?
Yeah. Yep. And I was a devout Yankee fan.
Right.
Of course, in those days, we had three teams in New York. We had the Giants, the Dodgers, and the Yankees. And I love the Yankees. My Yankees were Yogi Berra, Joe Collins, and after him, Moose Skowron, and actually Jerry Coleman, then Billy Martin.
Right, sure.
Rizzuto, Bill McDougall.
How about DiMaggio? Did you see him play?
Oddly enough, I saw DiMaggio's last year, 51.
Right.
And that was the year that Mickey came up. So I saw them both play the same season.
Wow, that's
amazing. And yeah, it was great. I'll never, like all us guys, man, you walk into your first ballpark and you never forget that green grass.
No, right.
And of course I can still see it, like so many of us, man. That's our first memory of a ballpark. I mean, if you grow up in a city and you find a place with all that grass, and it looks pretty good and impressive.
Even today, you walk into a ballpark and you never lose that feeling at that awe.
Never lose it.
Yet, it's just that, wow, that's greener than green.
Yeah, it is greener than green. It's almost like they painted it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that combined with the red clay, with the red dirt.
Sure. Right.
It's a beautiful memory, and
a great experience.
I try to last season was a washout, of course, but prior to that, I being in the Philadelphia area, I was going to Citizens Bank Park and watching games there. Well, that's what I wanted to tell you, Lena, how I transitioned from a New York group to a Philadelphia group, and how I basically a Phillies fan, which I am now. When I in the early 70s, when I was my girlfriend, who is now my wife, but her father was Mage McDonald, who was the pitching coach for the Whiz Kids and the Phillies in the 50s.
Right. Okay.
And so I got to go to a lot of the games, and I got to meet a lot of the players. Tug McGraw and Greg Lazinski and Larry Boa and Steve Carlton, all these guys.
Wow, it's amazing.
And that was, it was a thrill for me, because I had, and I met the older guys, Robin Roberts, Kurt Simmons, Bobby Shantz, wow. Because those guys, you know, they were in town all the time, and they had their meals in the village dining room. You know, they were hanging. You know, and it was very cool, very cool.
Oh, it's amazing to hear all those stories. That's for sure. And you're a little bit south of that, and you pick up the Orioles where you are too, don't you?
Where I am now, yeah, this is Orioles territory. I'm on the eastern shore of Maryland, and I become, you know, kind of a little connected with the Orioles too. I remember when the Orioles in 1954, as well as the Kansas City A's, they were like Yankees farm teams.
Right.
That's where all the ex-Yankees went.
Sure, right.
You know, but I enjoy listening to the games on the radio. You know, I really I grew up with the radio, and I'm a radio guy. And on a Sunday afternoon in the summer, I'll be out in the yard working, and that radio will be blasting a Phillies game or an Orioles game.
Yeah, you were a friend of a former guest of ours, Mark Lembeck, the Big Daddy.
Yeah, Mark.
And he mentioned the same thing, that he loves listening to the radio, and I do it myself sometimes. In fact, I really don't care for some of the today's announcers, that especially on.
I agree.
And so I either turn the channel or put the radio on, or the computer
on,
sound with watching the ball game. And it's just today's announcers, especially on TV, want to talk too much, and they're more concerned about their own feelings and their outlook on the game. And I'd rather just
sort of like the umpires.
Yeah. They really
growing up with. Yeah,
I remember one time when they experimented with just having the sounds of the game without any announcers. And every once in a while they'd break in just to tell you the score and everything. But that's the way it should be, I think. Let the game play itself, right?
But growing up with Mel Allen and Red Barber and Vince Scully and Russ Hodges.
Yeah, they were.
I could listen to them all day.
Actually, when I was a young radio guy, I had to do some commercials with Mel Allen after he retired. And he came in with the fedora hat, and I introduced myself. And
how about that?
Yeah, oh my goodness. And it was really crazy because I'd listened to him for years and years. And then when you got to work with him, he was a pro. Unbelievable. He read through the commercial copy once, did one take, and was out of there. It was so amazing. But just to have, like going to see the Pope. It was amazing to have memories like that. Our thanks today to Charlie Ingui of the famous group, the Soul Survivors. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next week. Good night.